welcome to regular G.I. Joe podcast. And today on episode 7, what I really want to talk about is kind of how this actually has helped me and kind of my thought process changed. And with this one, I'm looking back at everything of how I started and why I really started for this one, and a lot of reasons. I gave my intent of what I wanted to do, and I was getting a little upset because you start seeing a lot of things going on, and just so much stuff is going on where you can't really, bureaucracy is too high, where it's like we can't really change it. So I wanted to create something that could change something. And inadvertently, it helped me deal with some things that I didn't know that I was having issues with. And so what I want to do is kind of give my perspective on what's going on so far, and kind of some behind the scenes that this has created for me to kind of help out and kind of put me in a different position where I think, it changed my perspective a lot. So, when I told my story, it wasn't glory, it wasn't anything. It was just, it is what it is. And, it kind of felt kind of weird to kind of put my story out there and have people listen to it, because you don't know who's listening to it. Some people gave me feedback, some people reached out privately, and they're like, hey, I didn't know. And, it's like, yeah, we all go through it. And some people were to tell me some of the things they went through, and it was cool. It's actually helping. Some people, even told me that they felt it was helping them and that they could help others. So, episode 2, when I'm talking to my friend, when I'm talking to Tabasco, we can talk all day and we have a good conversation. And, that kind of left me kind of like, a little upset with myself because, we're good friends, and, I consider him family. And just to know the fact that, he was struggling and I never had a conversation with him about it. And a little upsetting to me that he had to go through that, almost alone, because I wasn't there. And, I guess we could talk to each other and be like, yeah, you didn't reach out either. But, still, it's still a friend. And I think those are the conversations we need to have with each other. And kind of, it sucks to have those conversations, but we need to have them. And, that one really let me know that, hey, I didn't really need to talk about some things myself, because, I am angry too. And, so when I had, the episode with, Izzy, and it kind of started changing my perspective a little bit, because, he had a great transition. He's actually, he likes what he's doing. He took some time for himself, and that's something that I never once considered for myself. So, talking to Izzy, we did have a conversation where it did go downhill, or not downhill, but the mood changed, because we're going to talk about suicide. And, and I was talking to my wife about this. It's like, there was a time when I was really down and, thinking about suicide and all those things. And I did have that conversation with Izzy, and man, I remember I was having that conversation and I was just smiling and like having a good time, because we're good friends and I've known him for a while. And every time we talk, it's always a good time. And so, I was telling my wife, like, yeah, I didn't even reach out. And she was like, yeah, but at the same time frame, we don't ever talk. So we kind of just trying to catch up. And, it's kind of those times that you kind of have a good time and you kind of remember and bring the community. And, so I get it, in those aspects. But those are some times that we still need to reach out when we do, and let people know that, hey, man, I'm having some trouble. Because I don't know anyone that I know of. I was reaching out and say, hey, man, I have some trouble. They sit there and say, like, hey, let's schedule this for next Tuesday or some shit like that. So, that was that. And when I had the episode with Paul, man, that really, I had to really go back and reflect on some things, because the same thing he was saying, I've been saying to myself forever. Now that I'm a realtor, one of the things that I was really worried about, and I talked to my therapist about, was the fact that I was like, man, I keep leaving jobs, I keep doing this, and I just kept always saying what I was gonna do. And that's kind of a real quick, a real thing to always do that. And so when Paul talked about what helped him, that's where it kind of started changing my perspective a little bit on this stuff. And for me, I like to be so down on myself and so hard on myself that that's how I think, in a real negative atmosphere. However, man, like, I'm working at a brokerage where they're very nice people, in a sense where they're always giving praise to each other. We'll be in a meeting and they'll be like, hey, does anyone have any bucket fills? And they take that opportunity to actually say thanks to people out loud. And it's pretty amazing to be around them. And for me, it's like, you're just doing your job, or someone need to help you, help them. And that's it. But they take the time to actually say thank you to them. And actually, sometimes when someone says something nice about someone else, 2 other people would jump in and say really nice things about that individual as well. And for me, it's just like mind blowing. I was very uncomfortable sitting there because I'm just like, like I don't know what to do, and it's not about me or anything, or I'm not saying anything, but just being in that kind of environment where people are really nice to each other and happy and just saying nice things. And the fact is, we're all realtors, so but we're still saying nice things about each other. So it's kind of one of those facts where some people would say like, hey, that's your competition or whatever, but in this organization, people are really happy, and and so I'm doing these conversations with people on this podcast, but also I'm having these conversations with people that are, this is the first time really that I'm not around military. This is the first time in my life that I don't have military life. I'm not a contractor for Marines. I'm not a, Air Force civilian, or, I'm not someone who has direct contact with military every day. I don't. I have direct contact with civilians, and, there's maybe a handful of us that are veterans, and, we're all doing our own different things, so we're not really talking every day. So this has been a different growth for me in a lot of aspects of that, just for the fact that, I'm having to kind of learn what it's like to be a civilian. And so, that conversation with Paul really helped me really rethink what my mindset is. If I'm always going into a job saying, man, I'm worried because I only last 2 years. Well, of course I'm only going to last 2 years because I already said it. So, I do believe in that idea that if we tell ourselves, hey, we're only going to do this for so long, then there's no surprise when we only last that so long. So, that is something that I really had to, think about really, really deep down. I had to think about myself and kind of sit there and say, like, hey, man, like, that is true. Every time I go somewhere, I do say 2 years. And I've kind of built it up in my head. And after 2 years, I do get itchy, or about, a month and a half or so. And it's also because I've told myself that I'm going to get squirrely, I'm going to get itchy, and I got to go find another job. But in actuality, I don't want to go find new jobs. Man, it sucks going and looking for jobs every couple of years. I would like to do something and stay for a while and do it. So that is something that I had to actually, change my perspective on. And now with my current job, it's like, hey, are you going to leave? Or do you plan on leaving in 2 years? Like, no, I'm trying to become the best I can be at whatever I'm doing at this moment. And, I wake up every day and, I feel a little bit better saying, okay, cool, I'm in charge of what happens. I can help people or I can't help people or, whatever, but I get to decide what I want to do. When it comes to how long I'm going to stay, I actually get to decide. So that is something that I'm actually taking to heart every day. And a lot of it is because this, this podcast have helped me really look at things in a different perspective. Like I said, that was a big one for me. And the fact that I always said I was going to be here for 2 years, this and that, and every job. And next thing you know, I go into another job already looking at it saying like, doing a countdown almost to 2 years I have to leave. And so with this job, I'm really trying to do something different and kind of not do that. And so I'm kind of happy. I was telling my therapist, that I actually feel like I actually do want to transition to the civilian world. And a lot of it has to do with this podcast because as I'm talking to people about my issues and they're talking about their issues, you do get a sense of almost like kind of like mini therapy in a sense of you can talk about your stuff and it's, it's not you become numb to it, but now it gets a little bit easier to say. And, hoping that as I say to others, people can say to themselves too as well and admit like, hey man, yeah, I'm having issues too. And this is what I'm having issues with. And it's almost like the more you talk about it, the less power it has over you. I kind of believe. And then, so with episode 5, I started noticing, man, my mentality started shifting because, I almost felt like the podcast was becoming, it was going to head to a very dark and, a way. Is it going to be, Jocko's podcast, like, good morning, and like, no. But it's, it gets to a point where it's very dark and it's always talking about these things. And, I think that's because that's where my mindset was at. It was a very dark place of, that's how I felt. But, talking to Izzy and then talking to Paul where, most of the time we talk about transition, but it's kind of like, transitions for him has already changed. So he's already onto something else, like, as far as the way he's in his phase in his life. And so it really got me thinking of maybe this isn't just me. Maybe this isn't, or not the fact it's just me. Maybe this isn't everything. This too shall pass. That sense. And so with talking, I kind of like had a different shape. So what I do is I don't have any notes. I don't like to prepare anyway. I like to just have a conversation with someone and let that conversation take us where it goes. And I found that conversation took us to, like PTSD therapy and those things. And it also took us to other things beyond that. And that's why I was happy to have that conversation with Obi. And we're talking about books. We're talking about this. We're talking about, leadership. Because, and I guess I got too narrow-minded into my own ideas of this stuff. But, we focus on just the sad things that are going in our life, the PTSD, the therapy, the nightmares, the suicide thoughts, the drinking. It's just the isolation, and those are true. Like, that is something that's really affecting us. But, we also have a lot of good things that are going for us in a sense of leadership. It's, regardless of how long you did, you still learn leadership at a very different level than most civilians do. And I think that if we can utilize our strengths that we gain from our training, I think we'd be surprised at what we can accomplish. And so, it's, it's something weird about that. And, when Obi and I are talking about, leadership and his thought and process, and it's, man, for me, it was a good idea because, I've seen him, I picked him up right out from the airport, just young kid, 18 years old, dressed in his blues, traveled, international flight in his blues like an idiot, and just, wet behind the ears type concept. And now he's a leader, very seasoned leader, in that aspect, and very comfortable in his position of leadership. And so, seeing him, being able to talk to him and his growth and stuff like that started making me look at other things too. It's like, yeah, we do have this. And then, with episode 6 with Gimp, we're talking about, yes, we're talking about different things too, but we're also talking about fatherhood, being a single mother, family and stuff like that. Like, those are some aspects that's life. And, what I'm trying to say with all this is, you get to a point where you're always talking about the negative sides of being a veteran, but we forget the positive sides of being a veteran. And so, that's what kind of the last couple of episodes have really helped me kind of like reshape my thinking about what this podcast was going to become. I thought it was going to be, dark and, kind of like, oh man, like, it's going to suck for people to listen to this podcast because all we're going to do is talk about suicide and drinking and all this shit. And actuality is like, no, this thing's changing where it's evolving to the point of where, yes, the veteran issue is suicide, drinking, and isolation, all that stuff, but it's not the entire story of a veteran. And so that's kind of, a disservice that I was doing because I was only thinking about this, but it's also where my mind was at. And so, with talking with other veterans, it's like, yeah, that is true, but also it's not the end of the story. And so what we're doing right now is we're actually, I was with Paul had another monthly, veteran work day. And so I went out there and I was joined there was 4 of us, 4 veterans showed up, and we're just talking and stuff like that. And, Chris comes up with an idea of saying, like, hey, let's do Murph. And somehow I think it was Paul or someone else was just like, how about we kind of just open it up to all veterans? And, it was one of those ideas where it's like, yeah, that's cool. That'd be kind of cool, I guess, or some shit like that. And not really putting much more thought into it. And then we started going with this one, and, the way it's going now, it's transformed from just a couple of guys sitting around saying, hey, let's just do this. Wouldn't this be fun? So now it's like, hey, we're actually talking to a CrossFit box, and we got a place to do the Murph, and we're actually going to start promoting it. As of right now, it's, it's March 21st. So, we just barely started, okay, this is what we're going to do. We got the time, the date, and everything like that. And the reason why I really want to do this is I think this is a really good idea for people because I think, as veterans, we're having a really hard time going through things, but there's so much things that are in our control that we can actually fix. We can fix our PT. We can actually fix our nutrition. We can actually fix how much we're drinking and, are we drinking alcohol? How much are we drinking water? Go back to old school days of just, well, what color is your piss? And that's, okay, how hydrated are you in that sense? And, like, let's just drink some water. And it comes to that part where it's going to be overall health. And I think that's very important to really talk about that stuff of, overall health. And, once we're talking about the 22 a day and we're talking about the suicides and stuff like that, we also got to talk about health and mental fitness and physical fitness too as well, because, those are some things that while we're all in, that's one of the common things we all share is that we all PT. We all have a PT story that's probably, happened and we think it's funny or whatever. oddly enough, it's a lot of the Marines that I've talked to have the most funny stories. I think it's just because they're just that crazy, and they have the craziest people in, and so they do some of the craziest things. And a lot of it happened there in PT. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that's one thing we all share. And so what we did is we come up with this idea, and the CrossFit Lubbock has every Saturday at 10 o'clock. They have an open workout where it's come in free and kind of just try out and see what CrossFit is for them. And so we went, and it was really nice because there was 4 of us that showed up, and plus my wife, so there's 5 of us, and it's all different, abilities of call it fitness, right? And so some people have issues, can't do this, can't do that, and it was nice that someone was saying, okay, you can't do this, try this. How does that feel? It hurts a little bit. Okay, we'll try this. And okay, how does that feel? It feels good. Okay, cool. And it wasn't about doing that workout. It was about moving around and doing the actual involving that stuff, and and it was fun. We had it. It lasted an hour, and we had a good time. And it was, it sucked in the sense of, it sucked because the workout was a lot of running in it. It had some different things in it. We did some tire flips, but it was fun because we were doing it together. The team atmosphere. We had fun, and we weren't trying to prove anything. Which my dumbass was trying to go as hard as I could, because anytime there's a couple Marines, and I would love to talk shit about that, like how their PT or whatever. But still, we're having fun. It's high fives afterwards, kind of clapping, that type of atmosphere where it's not here to sit there and put anyone down. It's here to uplift everyone. And so, that's kind of what we want to do with the Murph. And so that's what we found out of kind of, we can do this. I think as veterans, we are almost the misfits of our generation. And in that sense, we kind of look down upon a lot of things, of kind of feeling kind of bad about ourselves, or we don't fit in and stuff like that. And one of the things with this Murph is, we're reaching out to the older generation, so American Legion, VFW, and really talking to these guys because, I was talking to one guy, and he was saying, one of their members, the youngest members are 60. And they're a great organization that do a lot of good for veterans. But if they don't get new members, they will die off 10, 15, 20 years from now. And it's sad to say it that way, but, my generation, the millennials and stuff like that, it's, we're not really going to any groups. And so it's both on both sides. The older generation needs to adapt to the younger generation, and younger generation needs to actually understand what's going on with the older generation, because we need to make these things survive in a sense of that's what they're here for. They're here for the veteran. They've been around forever. They're established, and they have a mission to the veterans. And so, that's one thing when we're looking at this Murph thing, is looking at it like, how can we be a gap between the young and the old? And because, the new veterans that are getting out right now, are they going to go to these organizations? The answer is probably no. And so how can we let them know that the brotherhood and sisterhood is still there? It doesn't matter if you got out, 2 weeks ago, a month, or 6 months, we still want to help. And we still want to let you know and help you navigate these waters. Because there's nothing worse than, you got out of the military, you're trying to figure out life. And then also you're trying to figure out the VA system. You get out, you're going to school, you got a job, whatever. And now you're trying to figure out life. But just a couple months ago, you were in uniform and you were a different person. And so, like when it comes to that part of, getting out of uniform and having that depression, man, that's something that a lot of us know about, that feeling. And so instead of, letting that person figure out life and the depression and navigate the waters themselves, like, we should be there as a team to help out and let them know, like, hey, you served, but we're here to serve you now. And you will serve the next, someone else as well. And so that's what, this Murph thing is really coming down to, is kind of like, man, can we just get some veterans together and, it's like, okay, can the older crowd be there and just clap for us and let the younger generation, those guys, they're still PT studs or whatever, and let them go at it, but let them know that under this roof of, this, we can all come together. And this is what we all have in common. We all have a PT story, and we can just start finding our commonalities where we can actually start understanding that, maybe a Vietnam vet in his generation, he was a misfit, and we're the misfit of our generations. And so we have a lot more in common than we think. And I think that's where we can start finding the commonalities and start finding common ground to actually start having conversations. Because, if you're 60, you still have a lot of value to give. If you're 22, 24, whatever, and you got out, you have a lot of value to give to somebody who's 60, and vice versa. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we're having a big disconnect right now. We kind of feel, and this is how I feel too as well. You tell me like, hey, the youngest person we have is 60. I'm 35, man. Like, what are we going to really talk about? Or are we going to have that? And that's also ignorance on my side as well. And that's what we're trying to do is trying to bridge that gap and sit there and say, okay, we understand what we're up against, but how do we bridge those gaps? And I think it is possible as long as we can all figure out what we have in common and kind of support each other. Like I said, if you have a young veteran doing this Murph challenge, which is a mile run, 100 push-ups or 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and then a mile run. So it's gonna suck. Um, so we can do this, and you can have a veteran, like an older veteran who may not be able to do it, but can sit there and just cheer you on. I think that can start, bridging the gap a little bit in that sense of sending, letting that little 22-year-old or 24-year-old know, say, hey man, this older dude, he may not be that guy that can do it with you, but he can be right there helping you and cheering you on. And so he still cares. And also, we talked to the local CrossFit, CrossFit Lubbock, and they were like, hey, do you want it to be a veteran only? Which they were over so nice. And that's what, it's one of those rare causes where, being a veteran, it's like, if nobody wants to help you, we already know you're a dick. It's like, you don't want to help veterans out on Memorial Day, you're a fucking asshole in that sense. But they were so nice. Kristen, the owner of it, was really nice to us and was like, hey, do you want a veteran only thing? And I was like, for me, I would like it to be open to everyone because I want veterans to know that, not only do we care as veterans, but also the public cares too as well. And I want a veteran to know that they have a lot more people that support them and that are here. They may not understand what they've been through or any of those things, but they're still here. And I think that's the most important part is for people to understand, like, hey, you're not alone. It doesn't matter if someone understands or doesn't understand what you went through. They're still going to be here for you. And, Memorial Day for a lot of us isn't the best day in the world. And a lot of times that's when we're the most isolated. I know me personally, for Memorial Day, it's normally I'm going to go on a ruck. And, I think about my friend Yelner, my boy Trunks, and I just kind of think about the fathers they would be because they, Trunks had kids. And Yelner was so young, he didn't have a chance to be that. And kind of think about how old would they be now? Will we still talk? What would their kids be like? And it's a very, I do that first thing in the morning. It's a very sad time. And what I try to do from that point on is, for the next, 365 days until the next Memorial Day is, while I'm thinking about it, it's like, what kind of person will they be? And I try to become that person, emulate that person. Because, now that they're not here no more, we can kind of uplift them and kind of put them in this, okay, they're probably doing this and they'd be this great dad. And so, it's one of the ones where Memorial Day is a very sad day for a lot of us vets. And we're alone, we're drinking, we're doing something that isn't the best. A lot of it's because we're alone. So, with this Murph, with it being a challenging workout, it's kind of, can we embrace the suck together and let you know that, yes, today's sad and I'm sad too, but we're not alone. And I think that's really, to me, I think that's where we can start at. And even if we have to drink, cool, let's drink, but let's not drink alone. Let's start getting away from this mindset that, I have to keep thinking about them, so I'm going to do this alone. Where we can sit there and say, hey, we can have a conversation about them, talk about them the best possible way we can, like we would always do, but we're not alone. And so I think that's going to, hopefully, I really do believe this is something that we can start changing. And, Chris made a comment when he was like, hey, man, I wish I would have found y'all when I first got out because this would have helped so much. And, I told him, like, yeah. I was like, but the great thing is we already have all the mistakes learned of we can't do it alone. And, that's what's cool about it. So it's two Marines and myself, and we're kind of just trying to put this all together. It's no organization behind us. It's just three veterans. And what's beauty about this is three veterans who just want to help veterans. So it's not, it's just we can actually use our military training to get things organized and actually get things done and use a skill set that we've been taught. And since we all have been taught different things, that's the beauty of it. We can almost get together and, change the world. And, that's what I really think it comes down to in a sense of, we can all be together. We can all sit down and we can all talk. We can find out, man, we can do a lot of damage to this world because that's what we've been trained to do. You got 4 or 5 people together and you got a little squad going on and you can really change the world because we're highly motivated. We're highly effective where the fact is we can sit there and get something done. If we're not, we can just change right away. And so I think that's something that, we as veterans, we have a hard time understanding. The military really taught us this. It's just, we didn't, there's things that apply to military life only. but not a lot. You know, I mean, it's very rare that anything, you know, the haircut standards and blah blah blah. But you know, there's a lot of things they taught us where we can actually apply it, so we're willing to make a lot of difference. And that's what this podcast is really helping do is, you know, kind of look at things in a sense of like, man, we can actually make a difference in this world if we really try. We put it together, you know, toss the ego aside and really look at what our training does. Man, I think we can move mountains in a sense of things we can get done because we're just, you know, we get a group of us together. We're highly motivated, and we have a different way of looking at things where we can actually look at it, plan it, prepare, and execute. And you know, so there was that, and you know, there was a couple weeks ago I was doing some training for real estate. And you know, we're doing it, and you know, this guy's talking about how he gets customers and those things. And man, that guy was like, "Yeah, I'm in a grocery store, and if I see you behind me, I'm gonna ask you, and I'm gonna talk to you for the next 45 minutes, and I really want to know why you bought Oreos." He goes, and he was also, you will get a card from me at the end of the day because I want to know more about you. And to me, I was like, "Holy shit!" Like I was panicking. Like I can't imagine going to the store and you know, going to a store and someone's trying to talk to me. For me, it's like, I don't care, man. Like, I'm going to the store to get something done. I'm not going to the store to have a friend. And, you know, so I started kind of like, it was a 3-day, it was a 3-day like training event. And so the first day that's that, right? I'm like, wow. And so the second day, my wife, you know, we're talking about something and she was sitting there saying like, "Hey man, you just have like an aggressive aura about you." And I was like, okay, like, all right, I guess, like, that's weird. But the day prior, I just been told, you know, how a guy who's a really successful realtor, how he finds business in the sense of he's just a really nice, outgoing guy. And now I'm looking at myself being like, that's not me. And then, you know, the next day, my wife's like, "You're just a really aggressive individual." And it's like, damn. And so, you know, there's this thing with compound effect, where compound effect just keeps hitting and it just, you know, normally my wife would have told me that, it wouldn't bother me. But the day prior, someone wasn't that and is very successful. And so throughout this whole training, you know, the first 2 days, there's nobody that I'm really sitting there saying, "Hey, this guy's like me who's aggressive and this and that." Because, you know, that's what my wife has said, I'm a real aggressive person. And so Friday, man, the Friday morning, the third day, I woke up and I was in a big, you know, emotional whirlwind of depression and anxiety because, you know, being a realtor, you make money by, you know, helping people find homes and helping people sell their homes. And if I'm finding a guy and I'm hearing a guy who's successful, that's not me. And then my wife's telling me that's okay, that's not me either, that I'm just an aggressive individual. And now I'm coming off aggressive, and that's not my intent. My intent is to really help people. And so, you know, Friday morning, I'm freaking the fuck out, man. And I'm going to a real tailspin of like, holy shit, how am I going to provide for my family if this is not me? And I'm already sitting there saying like, "Oh, I got to go, man. I got a jack seat, man. I got to find an exit, and I got to start working because this is not going to work for me." And so, you know, this happens to me every so often. And what I normally do with this one is just put on motivational music. And that helps calm me down. You know, hearing good motivation, hearing good words, and hearing good atmosphere and positive vibes and all that stuff changes my mindset. However, this one did not change. And so, you know, whenever this happens, I go to step 2. And that is, okay, let's just work out. Let's just run, sprint, do whatever you can do to get so tired that you stop thinking about things and you can find a little bit of like peace and kind of like tranquility at a time to kind of calm down. And so I'm listening to motivation videos. I'm doing a 30-minute hit of a minute sprinting, a minute hitting the punching bag, and a minute on the echo bike and just like pelling my ass off. And I get done with 30 minutes and I am freaking out. I'm still freaking out to the point where I am angry. I'm terrified. It's fucking me. It's freaking me the fuck out. And so, you know, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to probably just go lay down and go to bed and just try to act like today didn't happen. And we'll start again tomorrow. And, you know, that's where I started out with. And, you know, it was very difficult because, you know, you're in the situation and you got training going on for the rest of the day. And it's like, you know, I'm having this internal battle with myself. What do I do? And so, you know, what do I do with it is, finally I was like, you know what, fuck it. Let's just go. It is what it is. Like, just start doing it. And then I started getting ready. And what I started noticing is as I'm getting ready, I'm doing what I always do when I get ready. I don't get ready 5 different ways. I get ready the same way every time. And so I'm getting ready. I'm doing what I would always do. And as I get ready, it's routine for me. And then so I was like, okay, hop in my truck. I calm down a little bit, but not too much. Hop in my truck, and I'm headed to the office to finish out the training for the day. And I was like, okay, let me start listening to motivation videos. And I do. And as soon as I listen to motivation videos, it starts hitting a little bit different, where it's actually starting to affect me a little bit more. And I can actually, okay, cool. I can kind of relax in a sense of my mindset's shifting. And then I was like, okay, cool. We start thinking about it. And it's, okay, I need to have a plan then. If this is not me, I need to have 2 plans. I need to have a plan that is, okay, how do we do this? And then also, how do we have an exit strategy just in case, right? And so, because I'm thinking about it real quick, I'm starting to calm down. Because I'm like, okay, and everything I do in life, whenever it's moving from Japan to the U.S. during a pandemic, finding a job, for me, I moved from Japan to the States. Within a week, I had a car, I had a house, I had a job. I mean, everything. Like I landed on a Friday, and that Monday started work. Tuesday I got a car. Wednesday I bought a house. You know what I mean? It's just how it goes. And the way I did it was, it's a little thing I came up with myself. I don't even know, this is apparently it's like a smart business plan, or those things. I just only known it as called IPE. It's just identify, plan, and execute. So what I started doing on the drive was identifying. Okay, I need to find business. It's called lead generation. Okay, I need to figure this out. And so I started thinking in my head, okay, how does this work? And I'm going along these lines, and I'm planning it out, and I'm like, okay, cool. Because for me, once you identify the what you want to do, and then you plan it, planning for me is the longest phase. It's the longest thing to do, because you got to really think about what you're doing. And then executing it's easy because you already put in, you're just doing what you said you were going to do. And then for me, that's the easy part. And so as I'm noticing, I'm starting to calm down. I'm driving to work, and I'm not freaked out as much. I'm kind of a low, my like little anxiety attack. I had a big one, but now I'm calming down. My mind shift is changing. And for me, I'm reading Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. Antidote to Chaos, and I've read this one multiple times, and so I like rereading it every so often. And he talks really big about the order and chaos. And so for me, what I felt what helped me out was I was a very emotional state, so it's very chaotic for me. And the moment I started getting ready, I started bringing in routine, which is now structure, which is order. Because I started getting ready as I would always get ready. And now that I'm going through what I had scheduled for the day, that's bringing more order into me. And so it's bringing less of the chaos, because now I'm bringing more order into my life. And as I'm getting ready, and I'm in the truck, now I can actually listen to motivation. I can actually hear it and actually do something. And that really helps out, because, I've started getting a good balance between order and chaos. And now I'm not so chaotic. And then I started thinking about plan. It's like, okay, more order, because that's just my personality. And then I started noticing I feel a lot better, because now I have an idea. I have a plan. I need to write this down. And so I was like, tell my wife, like, okay, I feel better now, but I need to write this shit down. And I really needed to stick it out. And so I go through the 3rd day of training. We're doing it. And one of our coaches is a prior Air Force, which I would love to have on here. And I'm just waiting to get a lot better at this, because I think he can help a lot more people. And if we can get bigger audience and those better clips, it'd be great. And so he's at the end of the class, and he's talking about it. And he's like, all right, cool. I want you to write your 3 superpowers. What are 3 things you're really good at? And for me, I wrote down my IT, having worked in IT for several years, having so much experience, degrees, certifications, and stuff like that, I felt really good about it. So I put that. Another one was structure, because I'm very, disciplined in that sense. And then I put vet experience. And so what I noticed is, and then he was like, okay, cool. And, kind of went to that. And because that was like, what am I good at? It made me really think about it. And it's like, cool, then I don't have to be like this guy who's at the supermarket, talking to you with your Oreos in your bag for 45 minutes, gives you a handwritten card, because that's not my personality. I don't know you at the supermarket. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm just not going to do it, because I just don't care to do it. And during that day, I also had, it was really good. I had actually, I went to the VA, and I had my actual appointment with my therapist, and I was talking to her about it, and she was like, "Well, could you be like that with anyone else?" And I was like, "Yeah, I could be around vets. Like, you put me around a vet, and I'm cool, man. It's a normal person. Like, I know them, they know me in a sense of we served, and so we kind of know each other a little bit." Uh, so she was just like, "Okay, well, if that's the case, then why don't you just do that around vets then?" And it was one of the ones where I had to change my perspective, sitting there saying like, "Okay, if I can't be like that with a random stranger, but could I be like that with a veteran?" And the answer is yes. I can talk to a veteran and, are you needing any help? Can I help you out with this? And I can be that guy who cares because I genuinely do, and I can really help out. And so what I found was like, man, just switching a little word around of, putting vet. Like, could I talk to a stranger that's a vet? Yes. Could I sit there for 45 minutes talking about random things? 100%. And could I also send them a handwritten note or follow up with them to make sure they got, like, to let them know I cared? And then the answer is yes. And what I found out was for me is that it calmed me down. And, there was a sense of, man, I can actually do these things, and I just need to apply it to me. I got really in a point where I thought I had to be somebody else. And so I started feeling like I don't fit the mold at all. And then I started freaking out. And instead of saying, how do I apply what they're saying and just use it and leverage it to what I can do? And so that's what I started doing at the end of the day. And I started calming down. I was like, man, I really needed to have this emotional breakdown to really let me know that I am fine the way I am. I'm just not like them. And that's what makes me different. That's what makes me good in the sense of they can't be me. And so, there was that like on a Friday. And the next week, I wrote down my IP, and, I asked, the coach, and I asked him, I was like, hey, what do you think about this? Because he's always giving lessons, and it's everything we learned in the military, just now it has an official title, and it's the diagrams. You're like, oh, this is what my NCO was teaching me, or this is what, the Air Force taught me. Just, I never knew the official terms or the official way it worked. This is just how you do business. And so we were talking about it. And he was like, "Hey, man, you try to remember, you're not a vet that sells real estate. You're a realtor who happens to be a vet. You need to know that you have to know that people are going to trust you, with the real estate. Like, it's just, and that for me, that was like a real earth shattering thing because, in about 2014, 2015, when life is chaotic for me and I'm getting my shit together, I was listening to a lot of Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins was talking about like identity. Who you are as identity. You won't go back on it, and he's talking about how that happens. And so what I did is because my life's a complete mess in 2014, 2015. I'm broke, finding a job. I'm barely just doing this stuff, and I spent the last year or so, months, just being like a functional drunk or whatever you want to call it, and just being a total fuck up. And so during that time in 2014 or 15, I came up with 3 identities. And the identity one was I'm a husband first. And the reason why is that is because, like, for me, if I identify as a husband, I can't be doing no foolish shit like that disrespects my wife. I can't be acting in a way that's, is not becoming. So I always let myself know I am a husband because I do have to in a way that is respectful, and I have to act a way where my wife is proud to be around me and the way I act, and so that helped change my perspective of like, hey man, like there's certain things you act, but there's one way you don't, and that's you're a husband first, so you have to always remember your identity is a husband, and that way you don't act foolish. Someone tries to act foolish with you, you just we ain't even going there because it's how we act. And then step 2 or identity 2 was a father, and the reason why I put being a husband first is because without the wife, we don't have the kids and we don't have the family. And being a father to me means getting my shit together. Really, it's like, hey, you got 2 kids that are looking up at you that need you to be something else. Because the way you're acting now, it's not the way that they're going to look forward to. Anything is probably going to give them more problems later in life. And so that really helped, shape the things. And then as I was talking with Git, man, a lot of things that I look at, as a father, it's like I'm trying to become that person I want them to marry. That guy, that guy who's this kind of great guy that I wouldn't mind being that father. Me and my son-in-law, I'm trying to be that guy, and that's because I think my girls are gonna find someone that'll like me. And so if I'm a piss poor drunk who's a fuck up, I think that's who they're gonna find. And so that's what I did to kind of get my shit together. And then the third one was a vet, and what helped me was identifying the Air Force core values and applying it to my life. So they're saying integrity first, service for self, excellence in all we do. That really did shape me. But I never reevaluated my identity. And so I can understand now where I'm going to become a realtor now, and I'm having problems because my identity was a vet. You know what I mean? And that was it. And so because I'm only a veteran, of course I'm going to have problems. I can't see myself anything else but a veteran first because I've already identified years ahead that I'm a veteran. That's my identity. Instead of being like, no, I'm just a realtor who happens to be a veteran. That's it, man. Like, that's, that's really it. And so once that happens, that actually changes my mindset a lot. Instead of saying like, no, man, I'm just a realtor. I just sell real estate and I do these things. And, the veterans are going to trust me because I am a veteran and kind of that way. And having that, like, it's so short. And my wife was like, just give me that look like I told you. I was trying to tell you this stuff. And it's just, I had to tell her, like, you didn't, it was something else that another veteran almost gave me permission to say that to myself. And I needed that. I needed to do that. And I was telling my therapist recently, like, hey, man, I'm actually looking forward to transitioning mentally, in a sense of I can let some things go away. I can actually, try to get some friends that are not military and let people in. Because for the longest, it's like, if you're not military, like, if I didn't serve with you, I don't fucks with you like that. And if you serve, we can be cool and we're friends, cool. But if you're not, I don't fuck with you in that sense. And because of that, it's been years where I just don't have a personal connection with certain people because I won't allow it. And, and now recently, like I said, with the podcast and just a lot of compound things have kind of worked on my mind of, hey man, it's okay. You can trust people. You can go out there and give them a chance. Of course, some people are not going to always be that and they're going to kind of, mess it up. But hey, we can try. We can actually try to let some people in and kind of improve our lives. Like I said, where I'm working at now, these people are fucking nice in the sense of they're always saying gratitude to people. They're always like affirmations and stuff like that. It is a different environment to be in where I'm so used to the military world of just, my boss used to tell me a lot. Like, what, you want me to tell you good job for doing your job? Like, no, this is your job and you're supposed to do it at a high level. And so, that's the environment I come from where it's like, hey, you did a really good job. It's like, yeah, that's what I was supposed to do. I'm only supposed to be talked to if I'm failing at that. And if I do a really good job, then it's like, well, that's your true. I think that's hard for a lot of people to understand. But for a lot of us military guys, man, like, you didn't get a pat on the back for doing your job because that was the job. It was to do the best you could. You only got your ass chewed out and a foot up your ass when you failed or when you were not living up to standards. And so, that's for me where I'm coming in now, where people don't think like that. And it has become a mind shift. And, I think there is something where a lot of us vets need to kind of really think about, changing our mindsets. And they're saying like, hey, that was cool and all, and that worked for the military, but right now it doesn't work now. We need to really understand that there are people who do care. And there are, a lot of, people who wear uniform that care. But there's also a lot of people who never served a day in their life that are nice. And, I've been meeting several people. And I was talking to a roofer, and we're talking. He's like, I believe in your cause. I know you like to help veterans, and I never served, but I really want to help veterans. And so we're talking. And then in the meeting, he goes, what can I do to help you? And that conversation really stuck with me in a sense where it's like, what can I do to help you? And it was just like, why? For me, it was like, why? Like, who the fuck am I? But, that's something that I've kind of used for other people. Hey, is there anything I can help you with now? How can I help you? Why? Because I really want to help. And I think at the end of the conversation, someone sits there and says, how can I help you? You're like, you know what? I do trust you in a sense because you spent the last moment to sit there and instead of saying bye or, hey, I had a great time, how can I help you? And, like I said, as veterans, I think we're very cynical in the sense that we don't really trust that many people. We've been fucked over a lot by a lot of things. Shit, our own community will prey on us at times. And, but man, there's a lot of good people. And I think the way we can tackle this 22 is, we got to address it. We really got to address the suicide issue that's going on, that we are having problems transitioning. But also we got to make sure that we don't dwell that we're having issues on that. We got to look at it and say, okay, we got to have a plan. And how do we plan to exceed? And then also, how do we have our military training that can help us excel? Not just survive in this world. I really truly believe that our military training can give us something to excel. Because where I'm at, they're looking at veterans for leadership because we have it, and that's something that the regular world doesn't have. But we're so used to, like, that's just you're trained. You go to school for this one. You have PME, and so we think everybody has it, but in a sense, not really. No one's really given clear leadership except for us that have been trained in it. We have plenty of leaders that sucked at it, that were actually good at it, vice versa. There's so many different lessons we can take from those that it's not just our own. And so, I just want to let everyone know my ideas have shifted a little bit. And that's why you'll start to see the podcast kind of, at first I felt like it was just doom and gloom. And that's where I wanted to spend it at because it's nitty gritty and you need to talk about it. But it's, can we talk about it? But then also at the same time, we also need to talk about therapy, man. We also need to talk about talking to people because that's one thing. So you got to embrace talking to other people. And a lot of us have guilt, man. We have shame, we have guilt, and it's not for something we didn't do. It's for the fact that we didn't see no combat or we didn't really get to, our friend died and we're still alive. We're wondering why didn't you just take me? And a lot of that is just because we don't value ourselves at all. And in the military, they kind of teach you like not to really value your life more important than the other. But that's for combat, and those are for reasons. And that we have to understand that we're not in combat no more. We're not deployable. We're out of the game, and so we got to really shift our mindset to really help ourselves and to look at it and sit there and say like, yes, that friend died, and does it suck? 100%. But the idea that we're going to sit there for the rest of our lives and always ask, why wasn't it me? We have to understand that we're alive and we have a life left, and we can also live a life for our friend that died. They might have cut short, and that's what I like. That's what I've been doing for Memorial Days. For Yelner, he passed away. He died as soon as he was there in Afghanistan, and every time I think about it, it's like, damn, there is a sense of jealousy for that one for sure because his name's on chow halls, he's remembered, and stuff like that. But we really do have to remember that we're alive and they're not, and so let's actually live a life that's worth living. And let's live in their honor as well. Like, let's become the people they were. If they were the best of us, and let's live up to that standard. And let's get our shit together in a sense of we can do so much, but we also need to reach out to people. That's something that we got to look at as one of our issues. We're not reaching out. We're not talking to people, letting people know we're having a hard time because the ego and all those things. But we can change it. We can actually change our situation. And again, if you can get 4 or 5 of us in a room, even 3, man, we can do a lot of damage to this world. And so, can you imagine if you got 2 of your friends and y'all could all help each other out of y'all's current situation? Am I talking about you're going to become a billionaire? I'm not talking in that sense. I'm talking about you can actually have a life that's fulfilled. You did your time in the military. You served your country. Now serve fulfillment. Like, look for a life that's actually worth waking up. And you're like, man, I'm glad to wake up and do this job. Why? Because I get to actually do this. And I think a lot of us, man, we served our country, so we're servants. NCOs, that's what you talked about, what you told. And I think there's a lot to that. I think we should spend our time on this planet helping others succeed. I mean, we can succeed along with them. I'm not saying like you have to be so altruistic where you have to like give away every money. I'm saying you can be successful and still help people. You can still be rich and still be a nice guy. Like, you don't have to be a dick or be this kind of person to get ahead in the world. You can actually be the opposite. You can actually help everybody, and everybody love being around you. And it's just a good environment. Like, people want to help you succeed because you want to help them succeed. And so, if there's a couple of vets out there, man, if you got 4 or 5 friends that are out, man, y'all should get together. And it don't matter if you're in the same state or not, man. My boy Q, talking to him is, shifted my mindset a lot when it comes to business. And because you're just like, yeah, you're right. We can do this. And so, and he's in another city. And we don't talk all the time, and we text here and there, but it's always positive. We're always proud of each other, always helping each other out and those things. So, do that too as well, man. Get 4 or 5 of y'all. Fuck. If you only have 1 friend, there's 2 of y'all. I promise you, y'all can do a lot more than you think. And all you gotta do is sit down and do exactly what the military taught you. Sit down, plan it out, execute it, and then go over it and figure out what went wrong and just make it better every time. And if you do that, man, I think you can start changing the world in the aspect of how you change the world. And if that makes any sense, of you can actually do something to make this place better. That's one of my favorite quotes from Will Smith is he wants to make the world better because he was in it. And it's not like an ego thing. It's like, man, I want to do good in this world. I want this world to be better because I was here to make it better. And so, man, I think we can do it, guys. I think we can really change the fucking world, and I think we can really help out. It's just, are we going to be willing to? Are we going to be willing to kind of live up to it? And it's outside our comfort zone too, as well. There's going to have to be some times where we talk about what's upsetting us. And I'm not saying like, you have a chair and call it honesty and say, hey, honesty, none of that bullshit. But you got to talk to somebody. And if it's, if it's talking to your friend because they don't understand, cool. If it's talking to a therapist, that's cool. You know what I mean? You just need to do something about it, because keeping it to yourself, one thing that I've learned about my transition is I suck being by myself, man. It's horrible being by myself. I'm better at a team, and we all are. We were taught team dynamics from the day we started. As soon as we entered boot camp, we found out really quick we got to stay together. So carry that mindset going forward, and so they said we got to stay together even further. If you and a friend, another guy, and it also doesn't matter what branch you're in. Shit, you get a Marine, you get an Air Force guy, and yeah, we make fun of each other, and then you start finding out, man, we have a lot more in common, and we can do a lot more damage because we were taught different things. We can excel at different things that can help the other one, and we can leverage what we're good at and work on our weaknesses. So, yeah, guys, like I said, I just wanted to kind of chime in and let you know where my mindset's been changing at, going through these things. For me, life is changing. It's never, the same. And talking about this stuff has really helped me out as well. I was kind of surprised. I created this because I was fucking pissed about a lot of things and wanted to change some things. But also it helped me change some things internally. So, man, thank you guys. We've been, people have been listening. People have been listening. Very, very happy about it. Like, who the fuck would want to listen to me? So I'm very surprised by that. We got YouTube stuff where people are listening to it too as well. I'll be making clips. I'm just trying to learn this stuff, man. It's kind of difficult to learn how to like make video clips and do all that stuff. And the reason why a lot of it's just like not polished is because I don't want it to be, man. I want it to be a conversation of the real gritty. And I think if the more you make it more polished, more this and that, it loses authenticity. So that's a big thing for me. And that's why sometimes there's hiccups. I'll keep them in there. I don't prepare no notes. Why? Because it needs to be this. A lot of life is not going around there preparing for everything fully. It's kind of adapting and overcoming what your scenario is. And so I want y'all to feel that, like, this is real. This is what's going on. And we're here. But again, we're planning Memorial Day Murph. I'll be having on more people to talk about that. So we can talk about fitness. We can talk about shifting our nutrition, our mentality. And so more things will be coming, but it's all to help us evolve and become better. There's a lot of people that don't like the number 22 a day. I don't like it. Nobody likes it. And so we're all going to do our part to make it a difference. And I think you're going to find out, man, there's a vet that a guy, he may not say it, but he's missing being around vets. Just talking. You'd be surprised. You just talk to a couple guys and it's like, Jesus, man, didn't really talk about nothing new or really important, but it just felt good for that moment to actually feel like the unity is back. So, hey, man, thank you guys so much for everything, man. Stay tuned as we keep growing on this one, keep looking at it, and keep evolving. And, man, hit me up if y'all have anything to say about the stuff, any comments, questions, whatever, bitches, gripes, whatever, man, let me know. It's been real.